You've survived the attack, but now comes the most dangerous part, the truth. After a lone widow bravely defends a wounded stranger from his hunters, she must now face the man himself. He has a secret that can save her from ruin or plunge her family into a war they cannot win. His offer is a lifeline, but it could also be a noose. What choice does she have when survival has a price? Welcome back to Life Wild West. We are thrilled you've returned to the frontier to continue the unforgettable story of Eleanor Vance. If you're new here or haven't yet joined our community, now is the perfect time to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single moment of what comes next. The man's ugly laughter hung in the freezing air, a foul stain on the clean, cold world. He took another swaggering step toward Eleanor, his hand dropping from his pistol to reach for her, to shove her aside like a sack of unwanted grain. "We're gonna have a look around," he repeated, his voice a low growl of menace. "Your choice if you make it easy, or if you make it hard." Eleanor didn't move. She didn't flinch. In that moment, she was no longer a destitute widow. She was a she-bear defending her cubs, her body an unbreachable wall between this filth and her family. She planted her feet on the rough porch boards Samuel had laid, drawing strength from the very wood of her home. Her gaze was as hard and unyielding as Montana granite. She said nothing, letting her defiant silence scream where words would have failed. The man, clearly not used to being challenged, hesitated. He saw something in her eyes that gave him pause. Not fear, but a cold, burning fury that promised a fight he hadn't expected. "Boone," one of the other riders called out, his voice nervous as he scanned the desolate landscape. "Let's just go. He ain't here. This place is a wreck."
"A man like Monroe wouldn't hole up in a place like this." The leader, Boone, shot a venomous glare at his companion before turning his attention back to Eleanor. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that stank of whiskey and malice. "You're a lucky woman today, but luck runs out. When we find Monroe, and we will, we'll remember this. We'll remember your face." He held her gaze for one more chilling moment before spinning on his heel and stomping back to his horse. He mounted with a grunt, then led his men away, their dark shapes slowly swallowed by the swirling snow. They didn't look back. Eleanor remained frozen, her body locked in its defensive stance until they were completely gone, their presence erased by the winter storm. Only then did the rigid strength drain from her, leaving her trembling and weak-kneed. She staggered back, her hand fumbling for the doorframe to keep from collapsing. A wave of nausea washed over her. She slammed the door shut, slid the heavy bolt across, and leaned her forehead against the cold wood, gasping for breath. The trapdoor to the cellar creaked open. Clara's small, pale face appeared first, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored Eleanor's own. "Mama? Are they gone?" "They're gone," Eleanor whispered, her voice hoarse. She slid to the floor, her back against the door, and pulled her children into a fierce, trembling embrace as they scrambled out of the cellar. She held them tight, burying her face in their hair, inhaling the scent of them, reassuring herself that they were real, they were safe. They huddled together for a long time, a tiny island of warmth and love against the vast, cold danger of the world outside. Eleanor's bravery was truly something to behold. What did you think of the way she stood up to those men? Let us know in the comments below how her courage inspires you. That evening, a fragile peace settled over the cabin. The children, exhausted by the day's terror, slept deeply. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world blanketed in a pristine, silent white. Inside, the only sounds were the crackle of the fire and the quiet breathing of the man who had brought such chaos to their door. Silas Monroe was awake, propped up against the wall on his makeshift bed. The fever was gone, and the clarity in his storm-gray eyes was sharp and unsettling. He had been silent for hours, watching her, his expression unreadable. As Eleanor stoked the fire, he finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "You saved my life today. Again."
Eleanor didn't turn around. "I protected my children." "You did more than that," he insisted. "You faced down Boone Cray and his men. Many armed men would have backed down. You stood your ground. I have never seen courage like that, Mrs. Vance." He paused. "I put you and your family in terrible danger. I can never repay that, but I must try." "You deserve to know the truth." She finally turned to look at him, her gaze wary. "The truth about what? Who are you, Mr. Monroe?" He gestured to his blood-stained vest, which she had cleaned and folded on a nearby stool. "In the pocket, there's a document." Her hands trembled slightly as she retrieved a folded oilskin-wrapped paper. She slowly unfolded it. It was a deed for a vast stretch of land she had only heard of in whispers and legends. The Crimson Valley, home to the Double H Ranch, one of the largest and wealthiest spreads in the entire territory. And at the bottom, listed as the sole proprietor, was the name Silas William Monroe. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You own the Double H." Everyone knew of the ranch. Its owner was said to be a recluse, a man of immense wealth who had vanished from society after a tragedy years ago. "I do," he confirmed. His face grew serious, the lines around his eyes deepening. "And Jedediah Kane, the man Boone works for, wants it. He has wanted it for years." "Why?" Silas shifted, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Kane and I were partners once, a lifetime ago. I had the vision for the ranch, but he had the early capital. But our paths diverged. He wanted to build an empire by crushing the smaller homesteaders, by choking off their water and buying their land for pennies on the dollar. He's a vulture who preys on the weak. I wanted to build a legacy, something that would support the community, not destroy it." His jaw tightened. "I eventually bought him out. He never forgave me. He's been trying to ruin me ever since. The attack, it wasn't random. I had gathered evidence against him, proof of his tactics, signed affidavits from ranchers he'd threatened. I was on my way to the territorial marshal when his men ambushed me." The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place for Eleanor. The fine clothes, the talk of papers and valleys, the violent men hunting him, it all made a terrible, terrifying sense. "You brought a war to my doorstep," she said, her voice flat. "I did," he said, his own voice thick with shame. "And I would give anything to take it back. But I can't. All I can do now is try to protect you from it." He looked toward the corner where her children slept. Liam had stirred, his small hand clutching a crudely carved wooden bird Samuel had made for him long ago. Silas's gaze softened. "He's a fine boy, strong. He's had to be," Eleanor said, her voice softening as well. Silas reached into the pocket of his trousers and pulled out a small block of pine and a penknife. "While I was lying here, I found this in my pocket. I used to do this to pass the time." With surprising dexterity for a man so wounded, he began to make deft, sure cuts into the wood. "My father taught me. He said a man's hands should never be idle. Said it kept the devil from finding work for them." He worked in silence for a while, the only sound the soft scrape of the blade against the wood. Eleanor watched, mesmerized. A shape began to emerge from the block, a form of grace and power. It was a horse, its head arched, its mane flowing. Liam, who had woken silently, padded over, his eyes wide with wonder. "What are you making?" he whispered. Silas smiled, a genuine, warm smile that transformed his tired face. "Well, I'm trying to make a horse. What do you think?" He handed the half-finished carving to Liam. The boy examined it with the serious eyes of a craftsman. "It looks like your horse. The one—" His voice trailed off, remembering the dead stallion in the snow. "Yes, it does," Silas said gently. "His name was Midnight. He was the best friend a man could have. It's important to remember those we've lost, but it's also important to create new things. It's how we honor them." He showed Liam how to hold the knife, guiding his small hands to make a safe, careful cut. "Patience," he murmured. "Don't try to force it. Just see the horse inside the wood and help him get out." Eleanor watched them, a strange ache in her chest. It was the way Silas spoke to him, with respect, with a gentle authority, like a father. It was a role that had been empty for so long. She saw Samuel in that moment, remembered him teaching Liam how to hold a hammer, his large hand patiently guiding his sons. Later, after Liam had gone back to sleep with the nearly finished horse clutched to his chest, Clara awoke. She saw Silas was awake and approached him shyly, a worn copy of the Swiss Family Robinson in her hands. "I saw you were awake, sir," she said politely. "I was just reading." "A fine choice," Silas said, his eyes lighting up with interest. "A story about survival, about making a home out of nothing but wits and hard work." "It's my favorite," Clara said. "Mama says education is a treasure no one can steal." "Your mother is a very wise woman," Silas said. "My wife, Isabella. She loved books more than anything. She used to say that every book was a doorway to a different world, a way to live 1,000 lives." He looked at Clara, his expression soft with memory. "She would have liked you very much, I think. She would have admired your spirit." Clara beamed at the praise, a rare, bright smile that lit up her serious face. She sat and read a chapter aloud to him, her clear voice filling the quiet cabin. Silas listened intently, not as an adult indulging a child, but as an equal sharing in the magic of a story. That night, after the children were once again asleep, Eleanor found herself in a quiet conversation with Silas, the wall of fear and suspicion between them beginning to crumble. "Your wife, Isabella," Eleanor began softly. "You mentioned her." The guarded look returned to Silas's eyes for a moment before melting into a profound sadness. "She died 8 years ago." He pulled the silver pocket watch from his vest, his thumb stroking the smooth metal. "A fever took her, and our unborn son." The confession hung in the air between them, a shared ghost of loss. "I built the double H for her," he continued, his voice thick with unshed tears. "It was her dream, a place where a family could put down roots so deep they could never be torn out. A sanctuary. By the time it was finished, she was gone. I've been rattling around in that big, empty house ever since, a king in a castle of ghosts." Eleanor felt a deep, resonant empathy for this powerful, broken man. She understood his loss in a way few others could. "My husband, Samuel," she offered, her own voice quiet with memory. "He built this cabin with his own hands. He said every nail was a promise." A promise of a future. It's often in sharing our deepest griefs that we form the strongest bonds. Have you ever connected with someone over a shared loss? Share a memory of someone who shaped your life and how you keep their spirit alive. "How did you meet him?" Silas asked, his voice gentle. A faint smile touched Eleanor's lips. "At a barn raising. I was the preacher's daughter, and every young man there treated me like I was made of spun glass. All except Samuel. He strode right up to me, looked at my hands and said, 'Those look like hands that know honest work.' I was offended and intrigued all at once." "A smart man," Silas chuckled softly. "The smartest?" Eleanor agreed, the familiar ache of missing him returning. "Clara has his mind for books, and Liam has his stubborn, gentle heart. They are the best parts of him." "They are extraordinary children," Silas said, his gaze turning to them. "The way they've shouldered these burdens, the way they care for you, for each other. They haven't been broken by this hardship. They've been forged by it. That is a testament to you, Eleanor." He used her first name so naturally that she didn't even notice at first. They sat in a comfortable silence, two people from different worlds, bound by the universal languages of loss and love for family. The barriers between the wealthy rancher and the destitute widow had fallen away, leaving only a man and a woman who understood each other's scars. Over the next week, as Silas's strength returned, a new rhythm established itself in the cabin. He spent his mornings teaching Liam to carve, his afternoons listening to Clara read, and his evenings sharing stories of cattle drives and frontier adventures that held the children spellbound.
He was filling a void in their lives, a father-shaped hole they hadn't even realized was so vast. One morning, Eleanor found him staring out the window, his expression thoughtful. "I'll be well enough to ride in a day or two," he said, without turning around. The statement landed with an unexpected thud in Eleanor's chest. She felt a pang of disappointment. The thought of the cabin returning to its quiet, desperate state was suddenly unbearable. He turned to face her, his gray eyes serious. "Before I go, there's something we need to discuss." He gestured for her to sit at the table, the same table where Mr. Abernathy had delivered his verdict. Silas sat opposite her, his presence filling the space in a way that was powerful but not threatening. "I told you I am a man who pays his debts," he began. He placed a thick envelope on the table. "This is not charity. This is a business proposal." Eleanor eyed the envelope with suspicion, her back stiffening. "I don't understand." "I spent a week in your home, Eleanor. I saw a woman of incredible strength and integrity. I saw 2 children with brilliant minds and hearts full of courage. I also saw a farm with good bones, good soil, dying from lack of resources." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Jedediah Kane thinks he can destroy me by destroying my ranch. But the Double H is more than land and cattle. It's an idea, and I will not let him win." He pushed the envelope toward her. "I have taken the liberty of settling your mortgage with the bank." Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "You had no right." "Perhaps not," he agreed calmly. "But I had the means. Your home is safe. That is the payment for saving my life. Consider that debt settled." He held up a hand to forestall her protests. "But that is not the proposal. That is merely clearing the board so we can play the real game." He slid a second, longer document from his coat. "This is a contract. I am proposing a partnership. I want to absorb your homestead into the Double H operations." "Not buy it," he added quickly, seeing the look on her face. "Partner with it. This land is perfect for breeding a new line of hardy cattle I've been developing. I will provide the capital for a new barn, proper fencing, and the initial stock. I will pay you a manager's salary, a generous one, and you will receive 10% of the net profits from this specific operation." Eleanor was speechless, her mind whirling. It was too much. It was a dream. It was impossible. "Why?" she finally managed to ask. "Because I need people I can trust," he said simply. "And in the past week, I've learned I can trust you and your family more than any man in my employ. I also believe in investing in good people. You are good people, Eleanor. You deserve a chance not just to survive, but to thrive." He paused. "The children can continue their schooling, but they can also learn the ranching business, if they choose. It will give them a future." The unspoken words hung in the air. A future you cannot give them right now. Her pride warred with the fierce, desperate love she had for her children. To accept help on this scale felt like a failure, a surrender of the independence she had fought so hard to maintain. "I will not be beholden to any man," she said, her voice firm. "I would not expect you to be," Silas said, a small smile playing on his lips. "This is business, Eleanor. Read the contract. Have a lawyer in town look at it. You will earn every penny. I assure you, I will be a demanding partner." Just then, Clara and Liam, who had clearly been listening from their room, appeared in the doorway, their faces alight with a hope so bright it was painful to see. "Does this mean we could get a new calf?" Liam whispered, his eyes wide. "And maybe a horse of my own someday," Clara added, her voice full of awe. If you're rooting for Eleanor and her family to finally get a fresh start, hit that like button. Let's send some positive energy their way. Silas looked at the children, then back at Eleanor, his gaze soft. "It could mean all of that, and more, if your mother agrees." He looked directly at Eleanor. Sometimes, the strongest thing a person can do is accept a helping hand, not for themselves, but for the ones they love. Eleanor looked at the contract, a lifeline to a world she couldn't imagine. Then she looked at the shining, hopeful faces of her children. She thought of Samuel and his promises, of their dreams for this land. What would he want her to do? I need time to think, she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. Of course, Silas said, standing to leave. That is a wise decision. I will return in 3 days for your answer. He walked to the door, then paused, turning back to her. Remember, Eleanor, this isn't about surrendering. It's about rebuilding. And every great structure needs a strong foundation. You've already got that. You just need the tools to build upon it. He was gone. Eleanor sat alone at the table, the legal document lying before her, its words representing 2 possible futures. One was a continuation of this desperate, grinding struggle. The other was a path she couldn't see, a future dependent on the trust of a man she barely knew, a man who had brought both immense danger and impossible hope to her door. The weight of the decision settled upon her, heavier than any winter storm. Eleanor's choice will determine the fate of her family. What will she decide? The story is far from over. We will be back next week with the incredible 3rd part of this tale. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications on so you are the first to know what happens right here on Life Wild West. We'll see you on the trail.